just a minute, we are looking at some of the weird and wonderful laws that still exist in this country, like the fact that it is illegal to kiss as you drive down a winding road in Leighton Buzzard.
A straight road is okay?
A straight road is all right, that's fine. And you can't carry soot across a footpath in Congleton. So in anticipation of that, we thought we'd wet your whistle with a little game.
Now, here are 3 laws. All you have to do is decide which are true and which are false. First of all, in Liverpool, it's illegal for a woman to be topless in public unless she's a clerk in a tropical fish shop. B. Every Royal Naval ship that visits the Port of London must deliver a barrel of rum to the Constable of the Tower of London. And C. In Northamptonshire, it's illegal to live as a married couple in a discarded bus.
Jot down your answers and we'll let you know which of those are real laws in just a minute. There are hundreds of them, many originating from the 15 and 1600s, that have never been abolished, meaning that you could fall foul of the law without realising.
The laws of Britain. Next time you get in a London cab, don't be offended if the driver asks you if you've got smallpox or the plague. It's the law. We must make sure you're not escaping quarantine. If you take a boat to the Tower of London, perhaps you'll see a barrel of rum being delivered to the Constable. Every Royal Navy ship that steams into the Port of London has been giving this gift since the 14th century. Whilst you're in the city, remember, it's illegal to keep pigs on the street, and whatever you do, don't fire a cannon within 300 yards of a house. But there's still laws to be enforced out in the provinces. In Bristol, you know, couples aren't even allowed to make love lying under a car. And if you're Welsh, please stay away from Hereford. If you're in Cathedral Close on a Sunday, the locals can shoot you with a longbow. You've been warned.
Oh, we're joined now by historian Anthony Adolph and lawyer Mark Stevens, who will hopefully help you avoid a criminal record. Yep. Welcome to both of you. So let's first of all start with the ones that we talked about there in our little quiz. In Liverpool, it's illegal for a woman to be topless in public unless she's a clerk in a tropical fish shop. Mm-hmm. That's true.
It's true.
How is that true?
I haven't the faintest idea. Some of these local bylaws, they come about through the most obscure local circumstances.
Right.
I mean, there is a funny one. There's one in Great Yarmouth, which I do know, which is you can't name a street after a poet, because the town council decided that poets generally led quite immoral lives, and therefore they didn't want streets being named after immoral people. So that's why I do know. The topless one in Liverpool,
it's a strange one.
Absolutely no idea.
If you're going fumbling for guppies in water, there's a good practical reason. I mean, if you've got all your top wet, if you're fumbling around to get the guppies out for your...
Guppy fumbling.
Guppy fumbling.
Yes, well...
Topless guppy fumbling.
I can understand that guppy fumbling would be illegal.
Wearing clothes, couldn't you? Very unpleasant.
Yes. What about every Royal Naval ship that visits the Port of London must deliver a barrel of rum to the Constable of the Tower of London? Now, that's true.
It is true.
That's true. But nobody does it, presumably.
Oh, yes, they do.
They do?
They still do. I mean, once a year, a Royal Navy ship comes up to the Tower and pays this, what is in fact an old tax from the days when the Port of London, the Pool of London, was used by a lot of the Royal Navy ships. Right. So the tax is in fact paid and no doubt drunk handsomely by the beefeaters.
It's not hard to guess why they kept that old law going.
No, the false one, in Northamptonshire, it's illegal to live as a married couple in a discarded bus. Apparently you can live in a discarded bus in Northamptonshire.
The double-deckers will be pleased.
Yes. God,
you can't, though, if you live in Upton upon Severn, you can't live in a discarded bus. You're not allowed.
Ah,
so it's Upton upon Severn.
It's not allowed there.
Not allowed.
Where did these start, and why?
Well, I mean, a lot of them, presumably all of them at some point had some sort of sensible reason behind them. I mean, there are ones like, there's a marvellous one, you can't walk into the House of Commons wearing a suit of armour. Well, actually, probably you couldn't because it's so heavy. But the reason was Edward II said this because he didn't want knights coming in and causing disruptions during debates. Right. And he had a perfectly sensible reason for that, because they were. And, of course, he ended up facing a rebellion and being murdered. So, you know, you can understand his point of view there. And many of these laws, there were perfectly sensible reasons at the time. The Scots killing Scotsmen in York, well, the Scots were attacking, you know, you needed to get rid of them.
So you were allowed to kill a Scottish person in York?
Well, you had to. You were being besieged by them.
No, but you still are.
It was essential.
Could I just say that if there are any viewers out there thinking of this, you know, as a weekend pastime, please don't.
Do not.
Even a lawyer like me, I don't think is going to get you off that one.
I don't.
Unless they invade again, of course. Yes.
Yes.
But of course, the thing is, there were these reasons why laws were enacted, and then because we had a civil war, but after the Civil War they just put all the old laws back. the way they were. And apart from that one bit of disruption, we haven't had a sort of massive rewriting of the Constitution or a massive revolution. We've had this wonderful history where laws have just accumulated piecemeal, century after century. And that's why we've got these wonderful things that haven't been repealed. And in a way, I think it's actually really quite comforting to think that we live in a country where you can still be subject to laws that were passed in sort of 1200.
They are odd, though, aren't they? What about the one in Bristol that you can't have sex under a car? You can't make love, I should say.
Well, that's probably not a medieval law, is it?
Though. How could there's no space?
Oh, no,
you were
there is.
speculating how you'd actually manage. Yes, how you'd actually manage it.
In the old days, you see, of course there was, because they were all much higher in those days. They were the same height as a carriage.
Or under a bus, of course.
And it was before the days of car parks, so you needed somewhere for a bit of shelter.
But somebody must have done it in order for the law to have come
absolutely.
in. So somebody must have been doing that for people to say, no, you can't anymore.
There's a wonderful law from Montana in America, which is also car-related in the sense that you are not allowed to drive with an uncaged bear in the front seat of your truck. You can drive with an uncaged bear in your Cadillac, but not in your truck, you'll be pleased to know. So if you've got an uncaged bear, make sure you've got a saloon car.
But somebody must have driven with an uncaged bear then, presumably.
Something awful must have happened in Montana.
Absolutely.
Well, one thing I don't know the reason for is Henry III in the 13th century passed a law, which I gather is still in force. Maybe it's law. You can't maim or injure a fairy. Now, that one I do wonder about.
Well, you should never hurt a fairy.
You shouldn't anyway, because a star will fall out of the sky.
Exactly.
But then you see,
it's a bit of a populist law, that one, though, isn't it?
Oh well, I think it's. Oh yeah, I think it's. But it's the fictional. It's a fictional fairy, and you can't hurt them.
No.
But you may think that's silly. But then in 1986, only 1986, they passed the Outer Space Act, and a magistrate can authorise the use of reasonable force to repel an alien invasion. So you can't injure fairies, but you are allowed to attack aliens.
Well,
but only
if a
magistrate says
I've always assumed that that's because the government knows something they're not telling us about area, whatever it is in America.
Of course. Mark, what are the chances of falling foul of any of these laws?
I think that the answer is that pretty much that people don't fall foul of them. I mean, the most recent one was the law of blasphemy.
You beat your rugs outside.
Yeah, I mean, people don't really enforce them. I mean, there's a law in London, for example, that you're not allowed to keep a pigsty in your front garden. Well, I wish someone would really extend that to my daughter's bedroom. I mean, it really is a pigsty. But you know, there were practical reasons. But who in London has a pigsty in their front garden?
So if someone came to you and said that I live in Kidderminster, I don't have a watertight plug, and I'm being prosecuted
For leaking.
Yes, you would be able. You say you'd be able to get them off. I mean,
yes, I think that's right. I think that what we lawyers rather pompously say that these laws have fallen into desuetude, which means that they're still on the statute books, so they're still technically laws, but nobody's actually used them in recent living memory. I mean, the law of blasphemy is an ideal example. Only in the last few years has the law of blasphemy effectively been pronounced as having fallen into desuetude. I did a case about a film relating to the Carmelite nun from the 15th century, St. Teresa of Avila, and that was censored by the British Board of Film Classification on the grounds it was blasphemous. Now, blasphemy, because it's discriminatory, it only protects the established church, Church of England, doesn't protect Baptists, Catholics, Jews, Muslims, any other religion, is discriminatory, so we don't use it anymore.
We're going to keep this running. Thank you guys
thank you.
for the moment.
Yeah.